So I had promised quite a few people that had made requests that I would post this video of my organic garden, and that they would have a chance to see what I look like with long hair and relatively full beard. And so that's what I'm going to do. This is all a first-year garden, and for me it's a labor of love. I've been doing this for over 50 years, and was very difficult because I laid this out as a 20 by 18 foot. I was going to do 4 separate patches this size, but I discovered that there was 2-foot long rooted crabgrass in here. And so not only did I rototill it, but I've hand spaded both of these beds 3 times and to attempt to remove those, so it took a little longer than it would have. And if I may, just as a description for all of you, that first row is 2 varieties of radishes, and I'm just about done harvesting with them, which I will show you later in this video. I've planted another row of radishes in this second bed. I expanded the 2 beds to 20 by 25 because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hand spade all this. And what I mean by hand spading is I cut this all into blocks and then took as much of the dirt off as I could and hauled all of the sod in block form out into the field beyond our fence. So that was potentially about 500 wheelbarrows, an awful lot of effort, but I think that it's paid off. One of the reasons that I'm sharing this with you is I'm trying to motivate people. This is what I call my revenge against Monsanto. None of these products or plants are genetically modified seed. They certainly won't yield genetically engineered product. They're all organic, and there isn't anything that hasn't been hand done by me. So in my first row I have 2 varieties of lettuce, which is followed by 2 varieties of bunching onions, and then my third row is what are called little fingers. They're little miniaturized nubbin carrots, followed by a row of taller Nantes carrots, and then I have 4-inch red bulb onions. The variety is Mercury. And then I did 2 separate rows. This first one is all orange and red peppers that I actually purchased an orange pepper and 2 red peppers. I dried the seeds myself and then sprouted them all. I had about 45 of them sprout, but the squirrels that are around here tended to bite some off, so I put them 15 inches apart, which gives me just enough room to be able to rake in between and keep everything nice. The very last row that I actually put in here is the second row of peppers. Next, this is 4 purple cabbage plants down at the other end, and then there are 6 green cabbage plants because I have 2 extras out here by my pea patch. Next, this row is divided into half. This end is what's called cheddar, orange cheddar cauliflower, and what's on the other end is called purple graffiti. It actually is purple cauliflower. It tastes just like what you're used to that's white. And then I have 12 USDA organic green magic broccoli. Then I started with 4 rows of corn from the outside in to make sure about that I was going to have the appropriate spacing. They're all 6 inches apart. These are a special variety, early sun glow. They produce 2 ears on 4-foot tall stalks. And I've gone back and reseeded what didn't sprout. And so I went ahead and did a 5th row, which will have caught up to the other 4 by the time I'm ready to harvest. There are 39 sprouted stalks in each row, so approximately for those 5 rows, that's 195. I will get 390 ears of the sweetest corn you ever tasted. I've grown this for 20 plus years and I just absolutely love it. And of course I've surrounded the bed with multicolored marigolds. I learned many years ago that anything that's yellow, orange, or red attracts ladybugs and praying mantises, which I adore and love to have them come into my garden. And then maybe I can head out here to my pea patch, which my friend Jana is taping all of this. Yesterday it rained heavily. My plants were up above the fence, if you can envision that, so in between 8 and 9 feet. Although the package, they were called Super Sugar Snap Edible Pods, said they would only grow 5 feet tall. So I set up a system and put anywhere from 8 to 11 plants inside each of these 12 tomato cages, and fortunately or unfortunately they grew up to approaching 9 feet tall. Yesterday it rained heavily, and then the wind came up after it dried out, and it literally blew them over. I'll walk this way into the front, and there were 2 small sections that did not do that, right here at the middle section and right directly in the middle. And so I just immediately trimmed all those off. I got 3 1-gallon bags of edible pod peas just from cutting those off and removing the peas. And then just today, well, we're inside dealing with videos and etc. We walked outside and they had collapsed what's left again. I thought about removing them before doing this video, but I changed my mind so that you could at least see some evidence. Maybe I can step back in here. And there are actually 3 rows here. They're all sugar snaps. They're all edible pods. This is the second row, and I set it up so that they would grow into the sugar snaps, the super sugar snaps, and cling to them so that they weren't going to end up falling over. They grow about 36 to 40 inches. And then down below here I have an entirely separate third harvest. They're more 24 to 36 inches, and I've set up some nice boards so people could come in here and actually reach them and harvest them. This is going to get cut off here shortly, but I just wanted to give you an idea. And that isn't anywhere near to the tallest of the tall. They were way above the fence. With just absolutely, I'm going to grab one of these. And the wonderful part about these edible pod peas, they're consumable the minute that they actually turn to pods, and you can have 3 separate cycles because they're still delicious as we speak. Now they're at the point where you can eat the pod and the peas. Very healthy. And in a little while, maybe another week, the pods get kind of tough, and I shuck them all and I freeze the peas because it's one of my favorite foods with yasmin white rice, or jasmine white rice, to add peas and carrots that I've softened. So anyway, that's my adorable, and then I have 2 purple cabbages and a traditional white cauliflower that my neighbor gave me. Over here, this is going to be a winter garden. I just spent 6 hours limbing this. It's a thorned hawthorn with 1.5 inch, the sharpest thorns you could ever imagine. They just nail you. And I cleaned everything up and threw it over the fence and gave the firewood to my neighbor. But in this bed, I've laid it out. I will have 4 rows of Brussels sprouts, and with a final row right here along the edge of what's called butter crunch lettuce. And then maybe I can walk over here, or she can look in this direction. By the way, I cut this cherry tree back 15 feet last year, over the winter. And it just produced a massive amount of wonderful, wonderful cherries, and I got to eat 10 of them because there's so many squirrels around here that they would eat them when they were still green, and take 1 bite and throw them down on the ground, which is where I found them. But I did get 10 cherries. I had a second bed over here, but my neighbors decided to put up a fence, so I'm training the Thompson seedless grapes to grow through onto my side. But I've created a bed over here that I've got seed potatoes already ready to plant, and then I'm going to do right at the front a row of Great Lakes head lettuce. But it prefers cooler weather, so I'm kind of targeting myself for it to mature towards the end of the summer. The Brussels sprouts October the 1st to October 15th. In my final bed here is just me getting creative. Now I sat at that table and thought and mentally watched the sun every day about where all of this should go, and I settled for putting, I've got 6 varieties of tomatoes here. The second and last plant are 2 special varieties of cherry tomatoes. The very first plant down there are golden pear, and then the other 3 that are running through the middle are traditional standard with various varieties. I created this fence which was holding up some of those grapes. My benefactor here, Tim, had a tent over his trailer there, and last winter, when it actually winter should have been long since past, we had a huge snowstorm, and there was at least a ton of snow on the top of his tent, so it collapsed. The poles literally bent over in half, and I salvaged some of the individual pieces and came up with this idea of creating a fence for my cucumbers to climb on, so they're all equally spaced. So I have 9 cucumbers there, and they're going to grow up and over the top and be hanging down. Now I'll come around on this side. I don't know. Is the volume? Can I still?
I think that I should stay close for volume.
So, and then as an experiment, I'm growing a artichoke that a friend of mine that works at a middle school here in town, Spencer Butte, as a class project, they were growing a garden. And that sprouted up in the middle of 2 older artichokes in the middle of last winter. And I dug it up, it only had 1 root. And I managed to keep that thing alive to where now I've got a beautiful plant. I think it will turn out actually quite well. And just as an experiment, I had at one of the nurseries that I get things from, he had a small 6-cell container of bunching onions, but 2 of them didn't have anything in it, so I made him an offer of $1, and I've decided that I would just go ahead and plant those in that pot to see how they turn out. They look like they're doing pretty well. My next row right behind those bunching onions are 3, some of my absolute favorites. Black Beauty Summer Squash Zucchini. They are so tender and so delicious. They don't tend to get 2 or 3 feet long, monstrous. And so I designed and played around with a hill design so that they would fall over towards the cucumbers, and that I can train them so that they're working their way outside. And then I spent about 4 hours putting together a nice little melon patch. You can see down the middle I have cantaloupes that are sprouting. All but 1 of them have come up. And at the end, there's 1 in each end. There's actually 3 planted there. Those are what are called moon and stars. They're heritage. They had disappeared from the market for 30 or 40 years, and someone found them again in very far out rural Missouri. And so now they're going to become the rage. 40-pound melons with a yellow spot that looks just like the moon and golden or yellow stars, so that's why they're called moon and stars. There are 2 other varieties of melon, sugar sweet or baby sugar sweet and crimson sweet melons, and then the 2 in the center are both cantaloupes, another variety. The tags are there. And most of that will vine out about 10 feet. So of the way that I've spaced it is I'll control where it goes and how far it goes. And then as a second planting, I did 4 rows because it's almost necessary to make sure that you get good pollination, more of that early sun glow corn. So just about the time that's 55-day corn, I've got another month maximum that I harvest all of that. I will be ready to have, within about 2 weeks, be able to harvest these. And again, there's almost, there's 156 stock, so I'm looking at a little over 300 years of wonderful corn. We have such mild early beginnings of our winter that as soon as the other 5 rows are done, I'm just going to turn around and replant it, and I hope that I'm able to freeze some of that in the end. And then this final row again are just red globe, very good sized radishes. They're so delicious. Everyone always says, but they're so hot. No, these are delicious. So when I finish harvesting that next row, which will be over the next week, within 2 weeks, this row will be completely mature and I will have replanted. So I probably will get 5 or 6 radish crops just by rotating them like this. And I think really, in essence, that's about all I have to say about the garden. And I wanted to get Jenna to catch the logo here. And maybe you could even say something about this. Everyone around here just absolutely loves these. While I'm chewing this, in April of 2010, I lived in the next county over and was growing 3 cannabis plants and a male that I had hand collected the pollen and hand seeded, pollinated the 3 females because I had discovered that there are a lot of people that can't grow from cuttings. It's a 3-way strain I created while living in Europe. And people were willing to pay at some of the dispensaries that I'm aware of $10 a piece, wholesale. They probably retail them for $20. And so I knew that I had about 3,000 seeds, whereas the bud, if I just harvested it, was probably $1,200, 6 ounces, something like that. And I had a very unfriendly neighbor who had had 5 children, 5 different fathers, all out of wedlock, that beat on her kids and used the F word constantly. And so I chose to get involved and confront her about that kind of behavior. And as a result of that, she called the police and made up this huge story. It turns out that by their what is it called, their global positioning system, that they could document that I was 888 feet from the sidewalk across the field from an elementary school, in other words about 1,200 feet. And I spent 10 years in Europe, and they had added a law, a part to the Oregon statutes, that you couldn't grow within 1,000 feet of an elementary school. I think they were just using it as an excuse. So I got charged with 5 felonies. I was forced to plead guilty to 2 of them. As a result, they took away, I think they call that forfeiture laws, and left me a homeless person. I immediately transferred my probation down here to Lane County because this is where I raised my family, and had spent 30 years before moving to Europe. So my son, generous as he is, an engineer in San Diego, gentleman couldn't ask for a better son than my son Justin. He's on my friends list, and you're more than welcome to attempt to communicate with him. He is a research and development engineer for a corporation and lives in San Diego now. Purchased a 1997 Volkswagen Golf for me, which became my home. And I was fortunate enough that, because they suspended my license, that I found a friendly lady that allowed me to keep it inside a storage unit so that I could come back there and spend the evening sleeping in my car. Unfortunately, she ultimately ended up losing her job, and I had to move the car outside, so Prior to that, I had gotten involved with the Occupy movement, and I moved to what was called OE4, which is in the Washington Jefferson area, underneath the overpass bridges there. It was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. I managed to pick a spot that my tent was the highest point so that I could overlook everything that was taking place there. And I hope that I at least brought some, I like to tease people and say that I was there to bring the light of Jesus, although I'm not sure that everyone appreciated that, and I didn't wear it on my sleeve just by my behavior. Unfortunately, I witnessed and broke up a fight that took place between a 54-year-old man and 3 young people. He was suffering from wet brain alcoholism and was delusional that he couldn't go to sleep because if he did, that they would come in and murder him at night. And I physically broke up the confrontation twice and went back to my tent, and he came out a half an hour later and started it all again and got put into a chokehold. He actually succumbed on the spot, but fortunately the medical staff was talented enough to revive him. He was taken to the hospital, and 2 days later he died. As a result of that, our wonderful situation there, which was about to get a substantial extension, was immediately shut down. They posted notifications and made everybody move December 24th. Unfortunately, for the first time in my adult life, I had gotten sick, like a flu type thing. I don't know if it was food poisoning or just being in that environment where the sanitation wasn't maybe what it should have been or could have been had we had more time to organize it. And I was fortunate enough to get introduced to a gentleman named Tim Hermock, who is the head director, owner of the Native Forest Council. He is a zero-cut environmentalist that's been publishing a newsletter quarterly, now it's online, called Forest Voice. And he insisted that I stay here until I got well. Well, by the time I got well, he then insisted that I not leave. I hope that I'm good company. I think if you can look around you, you'll see that I'm a neatness freak and extremely organized and very responsible. Part of the reason I wanted to make this videotape and share and show off, we are going to, and I'm going to post it again in a physical sense on my Facebook account, that we're soliciting $50 contributions to our 501c3 nonprofit organization, but as a gift or bonus for anyone who's been blessed and might choose to get involved, and I hope they're a substantial amount. I get told every week how much people appreciate the effort I put into educating and entertaining them. He has gotten himself into a situation attempting to refinance his house where Wells Fargo had gotten involved in the MERS system and had defrauded everybody. The title couldn't even be located, and they're attempting to foreclose on this property where how do you maintain it when they won't even let you refinance because there's no documents? I want to try to help him raise some funds so that he can get adequate legal representation to be able to fight this all the way to the end in court. So we're asking for $50 donations. We will take anything, $5, $10, whatever anybody might be able to afford. But for anyone that will respond in the affirmative with that $50 contribution, we'll send you, this is 100% organic cotton with what I consider one of the finest environmental themed logos that I've ever seen. There is no one here, and I think Jana would pipe up too, who's filming all of this, how much everybody loves these and is proud. She just told me her son, who's in high school, is proud to be wearing that at South Eugene High School. So anyway, I'm going to conclude all of this. The next phase for me will be to post this on my Facebook account. I will put Tim's photograph up there. I will also post his website. This logo is from winter 2008, but now you get a chance to physically see what it looks like. anyone that wants to respond in the affirmative could just send me a private message. We'll make arrangements to exchange phone numbers. Next day, upon receipt of cleared funds, this t-shirt would be sent out to you, of course, in multiples if you want to contribute, or you have friends that like it. 100, 200, there will be one t-shirt that's sent for each $50 contribution. So thanks for listening, and now you get to see who I really am. And by the way, I sure do love all my Facebook family and appreciate all the kind things that you have to say about me. Maybe final step, Jenna could step over. I start my day about 5:30. I have an internal alarm clock, and I spend my time out here studying, reading, compiling things to share with all of you. I'm connected to 50 blogs and 30 websites that are some of the most influential and substantial progressives, liberals, lefties, Democrats that are trying to put out some positive information about what I call warmongering predatory capitalism. There is a way to defeat all this, but it's a question of the numbers. We need to have enough people that are aware of what's going on and what the potential is to do something about it. So I appreciate you listening to me. I hope that my voice actually comes through on this audio portion, and thanks for letting me give you a tour of my garden. I will, as it begins to mature and gets more impressive, make sure that I give you another peek or two at what I'm doing here. So thanks, God bless, take care, and I love you. And I'll finish it off with some wonderful peas. Oh, if it's still running, these plants are nothing but weeds, but they're the most beautiful. They're my favorites. I like them even better than almost anything but roses. They just sprouted up, and most people just pull them up, but the bees love them, and I want the bees here to help me out with pollination in my garden. I've got another one behind that peace rose right there, and I've actually tried to transplant a couple that people pulled up somewhere else, but they were out in the sun too long. So thanks again. Take care. Rock and roll.